In this lesson, we're going to wrap up our look at the CDs service. In particular, we're going to focus on the JavaScript, in this case, the jQuery client against the service. So as a quick review, I've brought up the browser. Let me do a refresh here. I've hit the service. What you see displayed in the modal dialog is the JSON that is returned from that service. And after the JSON is displayed, the code creates an unordered list, and it lists the CDs and the artists, as you can see on the screen. Now, if we look at the page source, you can see a very simple HTML document, and I'll highlight just a little chunk of that down here. Here's the jQuery code that is acting as the client against the service. I'd now like to move into the Emacs editor where we can get a better look at that code, and I've got some lines numbered. The working file you're looking at is fetch.html. That's the HTML document that we just looked at in the browser. And the lines of interest are these. You can see at lines 1 and 2, what this HTML document does is it downloads jQuery. I'm picking the minimalist version of jQuery, very lightweight, very small, and I'm getting the latest version because I have nothing in here that is version dependent, really. And here's the actual client. The jQuery syntax really isn't of interest to us. Most of it, I think, is straightforward, even if you're not familiar with this JavaScript dialect. So, for example, at line 3, getJSON issues a GET request against this URL. We're hitting my JSP script in the cds.war file. What is returned at line 4, this variable reference, whose name is CDs, is a JavaScript object. It's an array. In order to display it, I stringify it using a standard built-in JavaScript library function, stringify, and then I display it here. So let me backtrack for a second. What the CD service returns is a JSON document, in other words, text. But what the jQuery library does is automatically converts that JSON document into a JavaScript object. Ironically, in order to display that object in the alert window, I need to turn it back into a string. And that's what's done here at lines 4 and 5. Line 7 is where the action starts. The jQuery each function is an iterator, basically. So it's going to walk across the array, CDs, and each time it hits one of the elements, it's going to invoke this function of 2 arguments. The first argument is the index, and the second is the value at that index. And then at line 8, this is where elements are added one by one to what you see all the way down here at line 10, and that, of course, is the familiar unordered list at the HTML level. Lines 7 and 8 iterate over the array, and per array element, what they do is they add a new item to that unordered list down at line 10. Now, the thing that's of interest to us is this. If you look at this part of the code, cds_int.title, cds_int.artist, this is just straightforward JavaScript. In this case, the jQuery dialect, but it wouldn't differ really in standard JavaScript either. So the point of interest for us is that even though the original data came in XML form, and that form was then converted to JSON, and the JSON then was converted into a JavaScript object, there's no explicit parsing, and in fact, there's really no way to tell, except for my intermediate code at lines 5 and 6, that we ever had JSON at play at all. In other words, the array that is processed down at lines 7 and 8 just looks like a regular old JavaScript array, which of course is the whole point. So that completes our look at the first JavaScript client. When we resume, we'll take a look at a second one.